Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course. This is an introduction to another course with Jean Eng and the Arcturian healing frequencies. This is an introduction to the fields of divinity, the solar sun transmissions. Here's Jean Eng.
Welcome everyone to this preview of the next Mastery Empowerment class with Laurent Gailey and myself, Jean Eng. We'll be having a class coming back from a Peru trip, the spiritual trip where I'm actually doing this recording from. We're currently in Cusco and we're going to Lake Titicaca. Anyways, I'm really excited about coming back to create a new series of energies and transmissions based on the teachings, learnings, and high frequency vibrations at these various sacred sites. I think we have a great program here, which I'd like to get into, even have people experience the different energies, both through the images in the background that I'll be putting up and some transmissions here that will sample or give you an idea of this deeper dive that we're having with this Mastery Empowerment class, which is called the Fields of Divinity, the Solar Sun Transmissions. I'd also like to thank Jorge Luis Delgado, who is our spiritual tour master and guide, who also transmitted many of these teachings that I'd like to share, and who also was a great friend on the trip. You can explore more of his work on various books and his webpage that's included in this series. So one of the things that Jorge was mentioning is that many of the sites, of course, are associated with the Incans, who were part of the Peruvian or Andean tradition. And then there was, and that just to anchor the time frame was about 400 to 500 years ago. Of course, there's thousands of years embedded in all sacred sites and all lands of the planet. So even 30,000 years ago, there were different people and spiritual presences and beings at these different sites. And so we could call those the pre-Incan teachers. So these transmissions in this field of divinity, solar sun transmissions, will include both the spiritual masters and presences, angelic beings from the Incan period, as well as the pre-Incan period. So those will be the spiritual guides of these transmissions, if you'd like to tune into them, even now, and that are holding space here. But one of the teachings that Jorge was mentioning is that the Incans seem to have disappeared physically, both as a people and culture, after this 500-year period, but they were went to another dimension. And I was very interested in that because there's this concept called the fields of peace that I learned when I was studying with the initiation school called Clair Vision, started by Samuel Sagan. The fields of peace is actually an Egyptian term for what they call an astral realm. Some teachers in various traditions, such as Sri Aurobindo and his spiritual partner, who then went on to hold his teachings. And Sri Aurobindo was a Indian sage in the last century, and his partner and also a spiritual lineage holder who was called the Mother, who was actually a French woman, probably a very high initiate who studied and worked with him, said that after Sri Aurobindo passed, he went into a subtle realm called the subtle physical, which is part of this field of peace, and that he's operating or influencing, helping humanity and the planet and all beings who are part of this planet. So in general, the fields of peace, coming back to Claire Vision, Samuel Sagan, who coined this term from the Egyptians, is a place in the subtle physical, or you could say a very close astral realm, from which various spiritual traditions, masters, lineages are helping to raise the frequency of the planet to actually transform Earth into a realm that's heavenly. And so people here, many people, probably yourself, who are connected to various spiritual teachers or masters in the inner world, who are trying to assist the planet in service, are trying to bring down this high level frequencies and consciousness onto the planet. So when Jorge mentioned that the Incans had basically went into another dimension after they disappeared from this physical dimension, I was very intrigued that perhaps this was very similar or even the same as the fields of peace, as mentioned by Samuel Sagan from Claire Vision. So I talked more with Jorge, and he did mention that the term that they use is called the field of divinity, and that the Incan and probably pre-Incan masters, teachers, spiritual beings of these lineages are operating from that location. And that all the sacred sites in Peru, actually in the astral realm, are linked to this field of divinity, mostly through what he calls golden sun or golden temples. So in the background, you see Machu Picchu, which is very well known now as a powerful sacred site, and you can tune into the energies there. But if you dissolved the physical dimension of this sacred site, you would then be able to enter, tune into these golden temples of the Incan and pre-Incan civilizations that's located in this subtle physical realm called the fields of divinity. So what we'll be doing in this mastery empowerment class is to tune into these different golden temples that are in the subtle physical, very similar or even maybe the same as the fields of peace. And the purpose is to either strengthen our connection to our spiritual lineages that are transmitting from the fields of peace, or if you feel a very strong resonance to the Incan and pre-Incan teachers, solar practices, and as well as the sacred sites in Peru, as well as the subtle physical levels of the fields of divinity, where are these golden temples of the Peruvian tradition. Then you can strengthen that connection to allow new frequencies, new codes come in through your subtle bodies and be used particularly in service now to help raise both your local environment as well as the more greater group environment that you're connected to, as we're all connected like a net, an interconnected net that may not actually even be physical. Many people are connected to others using technology through the internet, much like we are connected here all around the globe. So your tribe or your group who's very close to you may actually not be physically close anymore, which is a great thing as we raise the frequency of the planet. As well as this connection can help to raise the frequency of the planet, particularly in this time where we're challenged by many new problems or learning situations. Also, if you consciously haven't made a connection to the fields of peace or the fields of divinity, the subtle physical, from which masters and spiritual beings are helping the planet, then this series of empowerments or transmissions can help to make that connection. I'd like to now just change the background here on this Zoom video, just so that we can also connect to other sacred sites that we visited here in Peru. This next site here, which is basically in the outside of the Cusco region, is called, and the Sacred Valley is called Honta, which is actually a series of very high mountain peaks that we were climbing, basically hiking to a place called the Condor Point, which allows people to connect with physical condors who will come. And we saw a number of condors come during that period. But this was one of the most powerful hikes, or actually um, tune-ins to a spiritual site. There was no necessary physical site built here by humans per se. It was more hiking these actual trails. So we really tuned in directly to the powerful energies in the land. And this is one of the ways to think of sacred sites. And of course, here we're talking about the Andean Peruvian sites, is it's the power in the land, the energetic power in the land that gives rise to the sacred site. And then there might be a powerful sacred building or temple that's built on top of these energetic power sites that act as amplifiers for the powerful land energies. And these are principles that I learned from Dr. Ibrahim Karim, as well as Dr. Robert Gilbert, who teach the sacred vibrational science called biogeometry. So most sacred temples, of course, by themselves are powerful based on their geometry, their architecture. But if you took that sacred site or that sacred building and moved it to another land area that didn't have actually the same power in the land, that building would not, or temple would not radiate the same amount of power. So it's really, the building is actually acting as a speaker, much like in a stereo system, or an amplifier for the already powerful energies in the sacred land. So visiting these sites and using that principle, whenever I was visiting the actual buildings or temple sites, it was helpful or important to actually look out into the land and see why it was situated where it was, and to tune into the land energy, because that's actually where the most powerful energies of that sacred temple are emanating from. And usually when you look out, you'll see a vast, sort of powerful scene. And that was because many of the rituals would involve the person or the group tuning into the spiritual energies, and then opening their eyes at certain moments of the ritual and looking out to somewhere on the land. So it's both the land energies located right at the temple, as well as the land energies out in the greater opening, or wherever one was looking out into from that temple site. But I wanted to present this photo of, it's called Honta, spelled Honta, kind of this mountain hiking landscape, to show this sort of original sacred temples where there's no actual physical buildings, but it's the power in the land. Anyways, to get more into the Mastery Empowerment class, there'll be 3 days that we'll be together. And we're really focused on what in the Andean tradition is called the light. So the light first starts from us inside our heart. And physical light is a representation of this divine light, which the Incans, the pre-Incans, and the Andean tradition, particularly here at these power sites, were focused on. And this is based on the unconditional love from the heart. So wherever there's love, there's no fear. And wherever there's fear, then there's some lack of love. So our transmission or focus is on this light. We're deepening this light in ourself for connecting to the various power spots, places on the planet, particularly here in Peru, as well as the power spots in our particular solar system that then go out into the galactic system. So the first solar sun transmission on day one of the fields of divinity will be connecting to this inner solar light that's in our heart. And then the practices that we'll be tuning into is how do we connect this solar light from our heart to the Father Sun, which is the sun of our galaxy, or a sun of our solar system. So as many people know, the sun is our pure energy source on this planet. So for whatever reason, if there was no more solar sun from our particular solar system, then the living energies of this planet, of course, would stop. So everything that's living on our particular Earth is due to the sun. And so we'll be connecting to our solar sun, which they call the Father Sun in the Andean tradition. And then from that relay, that spiritual relay system, we'll connect to the galactic sun, which is the center of our Milky Way galaxy. So it's this exchange of frequency, energy, and information from our Father Sun to the galactic sun, and then back to the Father Sun, and then back to our heart, which holds our light, which is what the first transmission will be based on. And this is actually an Incan practice that Jorge shared with our group. That's the basis of this first transmission, which we'll also practice during the first session. So I'd like to do a short transmission here, just so that people can connect to this galactic sun, solar sun, and then heart sun energy inside ourselves. So if you just like to relax and receive these energies and frequencies in whatever way is the most relaxing or enjoyable, this will be about 3 to 5 minutes. So we're starting the sampling and the transmission on its own of the fields of divinity, solar sun transmission number 1. This is connecting our heart center's light with the Father Sun of our solar system and the galactic sun of our Milky Way galaxy system, enhancing the light in our heart, remembering who we are and the deep love from which everything emanates from us and is eternal. You can just relax and allow these energies and frequencies to bathe your physical body, your energy body, and all your 7 subtle bodies: physical, etheric, emotional, mental, causal, spiritual, and divine. We're deepening the transmission energies. Go deeply into your heart center. Maybe there's a faint remembrance of who we really are without any thought or labels, just the pure consciousness of who we are as light. And that completes the first sample of the solar sun transmission, like connecting to the sun of our solar system and the galactic sun of the Milky Way, remembering or allowing those energies to remind us of our own solar light in the heart center. I'd like to change the background now and show another particular powerful site. And this next site, as you can see, there's this mountain. And this was also captured actually on the way down from Honta, which was the previous image. And there was a number of switchbacks that the vans or buses had to go through for 1 full hour just to, car had to climb just to start those hikes in Honta. But as we were coming down, you could get a picture of certain very powerful mountains in this Peruvian mountain range. And one of these very powerful mountains is called Salcantay. And of course, if people have been studying the Peruvian traditions, the spirits of the mountains are very powerful spiritual allies and forces of the what they call the upper world or the Hanak Pacha. And this is sort of very similar to the upper world map of the shamanic traditions, which we can connect with divinities. And so the Apus are the messengers or the uh, gods or high spiritual beings of the upper world, represented by the physical mountains. And one of them, of course, powerful ones, is the Salcantay in the background of this on this Zoom image. And what Jorge was mentioning is that first, if you connect to this spiritual presence of the mountain, it will always remember you. And I had visited Peru in 2012, guiding another spiritual tour. And this mountain, of course, that term, that word, had always stayed with me. And so coming back now, about a decade later, when he mentioned Salcantay, it also had that same remembrance or resonance just through its name. And the other point is that this particular Apu or spiritual being helps us remember our wild woman or wild man self, this very unadulterated, unfiltered, but authentic aspect of ourselves. So I just want to put that in the background and also put that here if you wanted to tune into those energies and frequencies. Yeah, so moving on to more of what will be happening as a preview for this particular field of divinity transmissions. On day 2, or the transmissions, and these transmissions will be about an hour long for each session. We'll go through also some solar practices that we learn from Jorge during this spiritual tour. People will also get a chance to unpack the experiences that they're having. And so each day is about 2 hours long. But the second fields of divinity or solar sun transmission will focus on the golden serpent. And we learned and did a practice to raise the golden serpent in our energetic spine, which then was emitted out through our forehead. And then this golden serpent would fly in the inner worlds. This is very reminiscent, if anyone knows the symbol that's used in the medical, actual allopathic medical tradition of the caduceus. And basically, in that symbol, you have a staff with a spear at the top, and then two snakes intertwining each other from the base of the staff. And then at the top, their heads sort of focus and look at each other. And then there's the wings. Sometimes people call it the wings of Apollo, and they look like either bird wings or wings with feathers at the top of the staff. And so this is very similar to this golden serpent practice. And this is a very strong alchemical symbol, the caduceus. But the staff in the center of the caduceus is like our energetic spine, call it our kundalini spine, the central channel, the Sushumna Nadi. The spear at the top is sometimes a representative of our pineal gland or the center of our head. And then the two snakes or serpents that are rising up are the two side channels that are run along the central channel. They are called the Ida and Pingala in the Indian Asian tradition or yogic systems from India. And also, of course, the snake is representative of this strong, powerful Kundalini energy, which is linked to the earth energy or Earth's Kundalini energy. So when this energy rises inside one's energetic channels, is cultivated, then one's consciousness, or they call it the crown chakra in the Indian tradition, is fully activated, as well as all of the other energy centers along the energetic spine. And then one can fly, or one can perceive the inner world more consciously. And those are represented by the Apollo wings at the top of the caduceus. So coming back to this solar Incan practice, as I describe it, you'll see the same exact symbology and energetic processes. So Jorge was teaching us how you imagine the serpent emerging out of the earth, going from your left leg to your right leg, and ascending your legs until it kind of comes into or you allow it to come into your root chakra. And then this golden serpent energy, can be symbolized as the golden serpent, ascends through your energetic spine until it reaches your forehead area or your third eye area. And then you emit this golden serpent out into the Hanak Pacha, or the upper world. So then the golden serpent can fly. In many traditions, the flying serpent is the dragon also. So you can see in this Andean solar practice, it's exactly the same symbology as the caduceus, as an alchemical symbol of the raised kundalini, activating our consciousness so that we can perceive in the inner world and remember who we are on our most deepest divinity. So the second day will be a transmission connecting both to this Andean solar practice. So that's why it's also called a solar sun transmission. But as you can see, this is the greater template or archetype for the raising of the Kundalini energy in all traditions, probably even beyond this planet, as we may have done these practices both in the inner world as well as in other incarnations, perhaps not on this planet, as well as on this planet as we continue our acceleration and then into the future, whether that be back onto this planet or into other star systems or fields of development. And I believe it's very important to start consciously working with what we're calling the Kundalini or serpent energies, as these are very powerful forces. You could even call it the life force, which gave rise to our physical vehicle and which gives rise to all physical life on the planet. So we're really tuning into, not in an unconscious way, but in a conscious way to perhaps what is the most powerful physical force on the planet that gives rise to life on all levels, whether that's the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, or even the angelic kingdom. So we'll be developing this energy in our spine, our energetic spine, as well as all the energy centers, connecting in again, particularly to the Incan and pre-Incan masters. So I'd like to also allow people to start to tune in and feel these energies of the solar sun transmission number 2, which is the golden serpent transmission. If you'd like, you could just relax, just tune in. And you can see what you feel and just be open to receiving this energetic pattern. So we're starting the solar sun transmission number 2 as a sample and energetic download of the golden serpent. You can also tune into Salkanpai, the Apu spirit that reminds us of our wild woman or wild man self, most authentic being, and its expression on all 7 realms. Continuing with the solar sun transmission number 2 of the golden serpents and deepening the process and connection. That completes the sampling, the energetic packaging of the second solar sun transmission on the golden serpent energy. Yeah, so we'll be moving on finally to day 3 of the Master Empowerment class. Again, connecting with the field of divinity, which is the Incan and pre-Incan subtle realms. And the focus here will be on the third eye awakening. They call it the first eye, actually, in the Incan tradition. And this is really our inner spiritual tradition. You can think of our 2 eyes, and finally the eye, energetic eye in the center. And this is like a tunnel running from here to the back of the head. It's like an energetic tube. And this allows us to see deeply into things, see deeply into each other, connecting again, not to the surface labels or thoughts, but deeply into our light. So there's a greeting that one makes, that one embodies or recognizes the light inside someone else and glorifies or respects and beautifies that light just by one's salutation to each person. And this, of course, enhances our own light inside our own heart. So all of these transmissions are a way to deepen this connection to the light. And one of the practices Jorge mentioned, which is very powerful when one visits the sacred site, is not to enter into one's thought processes, trying to necessarily figure out what's the most powerful area, or even use sort of mental gymnastics, so to speak, to figure out anything about the site, but just to allow the light that's emanating from the sun, of course, reflecting on everything here on the planet, particularly on the sacred site, to just let that enter your eyes. And that this is another way to absorb the energy of the site. This is also another way to do sacred geometry. One might could think about from more a left brain perspective each of the symbols in sacred geometry. The other way is just to allow that light to of those symbols in sacred geometry to enter your eyes and to imprint or transmit the frequency and vibration into one's eyes. The other practice you can do, even with these photos, these images, you can project yourself right into those sites, and then you're there in the etheric and astral realm. Is first you can just open your hands like this, and you imagine like a whirlwind coming down into your hand, where you're absorbing the prana or the chi of the site. You can, of course, do that now where you're located. But if you're imagining yourself inside these photos or these images, or you can remember yourself at a certain site, you can just allow your palms to absorb the chi in that site as if it's like a mini whirlwind coming into your palm chakras. And then there's energetic channels that come through your hands down to your heart and then down to your navel. And then you can store that energy, that chi in your navel. So if you imagine your hands are out, you're imagining yourself even standing, looking from one mountaintop to the mountain that you see in front of you. And you can close your eyes, but it makes sense. Just imagining the chi or the prana coming down like a whirlwind into your palms, your palm energy centers or chakras, and then that particular chi or frequency or vibration or light or color, or even an inner tone is coming through your hands, to your throat, down into your heart, and then imagining being deposited or storing at your navel center, as if your navel center is like a sphere, like an energetic battery. Imagine it being filled with this chi or prana. In this color, it looks very similar in my inner vision to that sort of light blue white energy you see sort of in the sky or the clouds around the mountain of Salcantine. Anyways, that's one of the energetic practices that I was doing on these sacred sites, just to get a deeper taste of the energy. Of course, if you look at yourself energetically as you're walking these trails, or particularly in the Peruvian sacred sites, walking around is or hiking is a major part of being at the site. And if you look, the environment or the chi or prana of the site, of course, it's like walking in a sea of chi emanating from the buildings, the temples, and particularly, like I mentioned, the land energy. So it's a bit like going swimming in a pool. There's no way you can not get wet. So there's no way you can't let all that energy be absorbed into your seven subtle bodies. But if you do this practice, putting your hands out, it would be a bit like if you were in water and you sort of had sort of pipes where you could not only just be wet, but you could actually soak in or bring in water much more in a directed fashion into your system, into your pipe, and bring it into deeper aspects of your energy field in this analogy of the water pipes. There's also another major so-called water pipe that's at your navel. This was an Andean practice that I learned in the book by Joanne Parisi Wilcox, who was also an Andean teacher. And in this particular energetic practice, which she learned from her teachers, they call it your Costco, which is in general in energy practices is your navel center. So that's very important. Cusco is the same name, the city for Costco, this sort of energetic navel. And Cusco is also known as the energetic navel of the Andean lands, as all the ley lines or energetic lines emanate from this particular area in Peru out to the sacred sites in Peru and then out actually into the world. And there's a major energetic line that runs through Cusco and other sacred sites here in Peru. And then if you draw this, goes all the way to Mount Shasta. So it's a very important energetic line. And if you measure it, it's actually at 23 degrees, which is the same energetic tilt or the same angle of the tilt of the earth as it's in our relationship to the sun. So if you change that angle, of course, the sun would hit our planet in a very different way and perhaps not give rise to the seasons that we have, the four seasons, or even life on the planet as we currently know it. So that energetic angle of that line that leads from here to the Peruvian site to Mount Shasta at 23 degrees is holding the same resonance as the tilt of the earth. And this is something that Jorge had studied and had transmitted or taught us during the tour here. But this energetic practice with the navel, much like you can absorb the energy through your hands, you can imagine the energy of the environment of a site coming into your navel center. And then imagine it splitting in two. So your navel energetically is much like your stomach or your digestive system physically. So on the physical plane, we can digest pretty much almost any food that we eat, through our mouth. And then, of course, it's very powerfully digested and transmitted. The things that we can use are absorbed into our system, so-called the physical nutrients. Of course, that's also probably energetic nutrients. And then we emit or expel eventually to the earth on a physical plane, that which what we might call the roughage or the refuse, things that we can't absorb. In the same way, our energetic navel can absorb energy. You just imagine it coming straight into your navel region. And then like a pipe splitting in two, the powerful high frequency energies, they call it Sami energies, you could imagine coming up into your field, much like a fountain, and then being absorbed to all inner parts of your energy field, as well as out from your crown around into your outer aura. The refined or the energies that you don't need, sometimes called the hucha or heavier, darker energies that you've absorbed in, you can imagine going down into your lower pipe or your lower energetic cord and into the earth or Mama Pacha, the spirit of the earth. And she can receive all energies. In fact, she uses those energies and like a composting will then redistribute those energies. So in a way, this energetic practice both benefits yourself, you're sort of getting the pure essence of whatever you tune into, let's say the environment of a sacred site, as well as you're processing the energy of that sacred site and then allowing those sort of heavier energies to return back into the earth. So it's almost like we're one of those composting beings. So we're processing that energy. We're benefiting from it, as well as returning some of those energies to be further digested by the earth. But this is also a very, maybe more even powerful or intimate way to absorb the energy of a sacred site. You can just sort of tune in, almost like your navel is like a third eye, just touching in and absorbing whatever energies you'd like to process or bring into yourself in a much more conscious way than just sort of the environmental absorbing of the chi or prana in an environment, in this case, the sacred site. Anyways, it looks like we're coming to a close in terms of the time for this preview. Hopefully it was actually also a deepening of your own realizations or practices and a connection to the Andean tradition, particularly the spiritual forces here, both because the recording was done here in Peru and Cusco, as we move on to Lake Titicaca, but more importantly to this subtle physical realm, what's called the fields of divinity, which on a larger scale might also be called the fields of peace, from which many are traditions, or maybe even all spiritual lineages and masters who are helping to raise the frequency of the planet are emanating from. Just to conclude, that last third day, we'll do the final fields of divinity, solar sun transmission, which will is called the one eye transmission, very, or the same thing as the third eye area. It's called the one eye in the Andean tradition, perhaps our first spiritual eye, where we were able to perceive the spirit within ourselves and within all creation and all beings. Okay, I hope you enjoyed connecting with the light, and this series will help to more anchor the light both in ourselves and out into the environment. I want to thank Lauren Gailey for hosting this upcoming Mastery Empowerment series, also the other empowerment series that we've had. You may want to explore those. The ones that might be particularly relevant, of course, are the dreaming practices, which come from the Tibetan tradition, and there are many other lucid dreaming and sleeping practices. Also, there's a portal mastery empowerment class that would be very appropriate or very similar, almost like a preview from a more galactic or archetypal level to tuning into specific sacred sites. And in this case, we'll tune into the Andean Peruvian sacred energies. All right, look forward to seeing you soon, and thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jean Eng and the Arcturian Healing Frequencies. If you are interested in registering for this course, please do so. The link is right here on this webpage, and we invite you to sign up. We'll see you soon in this magical 3-day series. Namaste.